Hey, blessings and welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in First Chronicles chapters 3 through 5. And as we talked about yesterday in chapters 1 and 2, it was all about genealogy. Well, we're kind of cleaning house here. We're doing the last little bits of what we need to get done as far as Old Testament read. So in 3 days we can start New Testament read. And today I was a little surprised. We're still in genealogies, and I think we will be tomorrow because I kind of cheated and looked to see what chapter 6 was because that's what we read tomorrow. But today, again, we continue with genealogy, like I said, chapter 3, verse 1. We see the sons of the king of David. And this is always interesting to me. Anything with David, I shouldn't say that, anything with the Bible is interesting. But I really like David and just his character and the leader that he was. And David was a human being. He made lots of mistakes, but he had a lot of integrity too. And I love the leadership of David and most of the things that he did. Anyway, you can't go wrong when you're talking about a man that God Himself says, David is a man after my own heart. I want to be a man after God's heart. Anyway, I digress. Chapter 3, verse 4. The Bible makes a distinction between the sons that David had while he was king of Hebron and the sons or the children that he had while he was king of Jerusalem. He was king of Hebron for 7 years, had 6 children, and then he was king of Jerusalem for Judah for 44 years. Had at least 10, I remember looking at when I was counting up this genealogy stuff, but he reigned there for 34 years, grand total, I'm sorry, 33 years, grand total of 40 years, which 40 is a big number in the Bible, and David was king for 40 years, so 7 in Hebron and 33 in Judah. And chapter 3, verse 5 starts listing the children that are born in Jerusalem. It starts with the 4 that are born of Bathsheba, and Bathsheba is what we call her in Samuel. But number 4 is Solomon. And Solomon is the child that the line of kings is going to come from. And as you can expect or imagine, David had a lot of children. And if you started doing genealogies for 10 different children, I mean, the tree would just immediately go sideways and it would be so huge. I've always wanted to sit down and just take a week or two and map out as much genealogy as I could. People have done it before. There are genealogies out there you can get. But, man, it would be really interesting to investigate what person came from what part of David's line and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, if you're ever interested, here's a good place to start. Then in verse 10, the genealogy runs from 5 to 10, runs through Solomon's genealogy, and then we jump over into chapter 4. And chapter 4 takes us back to Judah for just a minute. So we go backwards in the genealogy. And it talks about Judah was the father of Perez, who is in the line of Jesus. And the story of Perez is, if you don't remember that and you have time to go back and look up the Perez story and how he was born. It just shows that there's a lot of people in Jesus' genealogy that weren't perfect human beings, that Jesus' genealogy is filled with dysfunction just like everybody else's. And it makes us realize, I mean, really, when you get down to it, it makes us realize that if these people can be in Jesus' genealogy, the genealogy of Jesus Christ, if He can use some pretty dysfunctional people, He can use us too. And I've always loved that about Jesus' genealogy. There's more than just Perez. They're dysfunctional in Jesus' genealogy. But anyway, it is a wonderful and beautiful lesson that maybe one day we'll get into. But today we're going to continue on in chapter 4, verse 9 and 10. Have you ever heard the prayer of Jabez? I think, I don't know, maybe 2010, maybe older than that. But there was a period of time or a season where, man, the prayer of Jabez was everywhere. Everybody was reading the prayer of Jabez every day because God blessed this man, increased his land, and just had favor on him. And so there was this thought that this prayer in chapter 4 verses 9 and 10 was like some kind of magical formula that if you read the prayer of Jabez every day, you could get this physical earthly favor of God. You know, there is no magical formula, but at the same time it is an awesome prayer, and I love it. I prayed it a bunch too. Not just so God will, grant me all these physical things on the earth, but just that God granted him such favor. I love that, and it is a good prayer. Then we go into verse 24. It goes into the descendants of Simeon, and Simeon was the second born child of Israel. Jacob, the name's interchangeable. So now we start getting into the descendants, the 12 tribes of Israel and their descendants and these family trees. So like I said, man, these family trees just start going crazy and huge. Then in chapter 5, verse 1, Reuben, who was the firstborn, whoops, sorry guys, Reuben was the firstborn, and we start seeing his genealogy. And then in chapter 5:23, we see the half-tribe of Manasseh and his genealogy, and we will continue tomorrow in First Chronicles chapter 6. So I hope you read ahead, come back here, and let's see what kind of law enforcement takeaway we get. Until then, you guys be safe.